In your Bible, I'd like for you to open up to Matthew chapter 6 and in verse 19 and following. That's where our text is going to be coming from this morning. As I was thinking about this lesson, it just happened that I saw this commercial. It's only about 20 seconds or so. And so we're going to just kind of play this, and then I want to kind of intro in and think about a little bit about what some of these people say about our topic today. One of the things that I think is interesting about that commercial is what one of the guys said, that money is freedom. And then someone said, well, I think about money all the time. I love the guy, I'm not a good budgeter. Like, okay, join the crowd. There's several of us like that. But, when we think about finances, I would just ask you, what does money mean to you? What does money do for you? What grip does money have on your life? For most of us in this Western world, we are so blessed materially that we hardly see the idolatry of money as it creeps its way into the church. When I've talked to some missionaries and I've asked them about dealing with certain issues, I've watched some things go on in the church and I'm thinking, why don't you guys deal with that? And they're like, well, they're just coming out of such paganism and different stuff that there are some things that sort of work their way in. And they said, well, it's sort of like materialism in the American church. I never thought about it like that. I was like, what are you talking about? They're like, you're so blessed with materialism that sometimes that gets in the way of really having a relationship with God. You don't trust God for your daily bread because you have so much. You don't worry about those types of things. And it got me thinking about that even in our Western world, we are so blessed. The very poor of us in our country is still very, very blessed comparative to the rest of the world, that we do not see materialism creeping its way into the church. But materialism can reside as much in the church as it does outside of the church. I even find it with myself. I never really considered myself someone to be struggling with materialism. It was just something I thought maybe I'd always kind of had a grasp on. But I've noticed, especially here in the last several months, that it is something that I do struggle with. I am so taken in by things to find pleasure and happiness and satisfaction and the things of this world, even over finding those things in God. And so I just confess to you that, I don't think this is something I model very well, but I know that the Word of God is what it is. And so whether I model it right or not doesn't have a bearing on whether it should be preached or not. And so I'm just going to try and share with you what the Scripture says about it and really be preaching to myself. You just happen to hear the sermon, okay? That's kind of how it's going to go this morning. I'm going to ask you to just stand with me. Go ahead and stand with me as we read God's Word. We don't do this very often. Sometimes I think we don't give maybe enough due respect. And I figure if I got to stand, why not make you stand as well, right? Let's stand. Let me just read the text that's going to be on the screen and follow along. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and rust do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The eye is a lamp of the body, and if your eyes are good, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? No one can serve two masters. Either he will hate one and love the other, or he will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. All right, please be seated. We've been looking at a series of sermons over the last couple months now on the Sermon on the Mount. And Jesus has been dealing with some very hard-hitting issues. We've talked about moral issues, adultery issues. We talked about enemy issues and loving our neighbors. We've talked about prayer and fasting. And we've talked about just those things that really challenge us to have great spiritual maturity. I think that this issue is an issue that requires great spiritual maturity. It requires us to rise above the world in which we live in and to see Jesus for who He really is. Materialism has such a hold on the church. And I think it has been, we have been so sucked into materialism that sometimes we push the things of God to the back burner, if not off of the stove altogether. What I want to do today is just kind of break this section down into 3 sections and give you some subpoints divided out, and then I want to bring some application to it at the end. So on the back of your bulletin there is an outline. It's a little more fuller than what we normally have here. I just want you to kind of think about some of the things that are going on. Let's go back then to the first section, these first 3 verses here, starting in verse 19, right? Jesus is speaking to the crowd. They've already been hearing some of his great teachings. And now he says, do not store up for yourselves, right, treasures on earth, where moth and dust destroy, where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and rust do not destroy, where thieves do not break in and steal. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Number 1 is this. I want you to write this down. There is a clear difference between earthly and heavenly treasures. There is a clear difference between the earthly treasures and heavenly treasures. Jesus begins by using a Greek phraseology that the NIV really does not quite translate when it says, do not store up for yourselves treasures in heaven. Because as I read it, and maybe it's just me, but as I read it, it almost sounds like there's this warning against a future action. Don't do this or this will happen. Don't go down this route or God's going to respond this way. It's almost as if I'm just giving you some warning now. Don't ever get involved, Don't ever start drugs. Don't ever start drinking. Don't ever start, because these things are going to have negative effects. But that's really not what the language says. The Greek literally is saying, stop storing up treasures in heaven. The wording is making a statement that this is going on right now, and it's something that needs to stop. So it wasn't a crowd that was thinking, well, I shouldn't get involved in it. Rather, it's a crowd being taught, I need to get a handle on this. And when we read this in the church, we ought to be reading it, stop storing up for yourselves treasures in heaven. So that we can put our focus where it needs to be. Not being controlled by material things, but rather being controlled by spiritual things. With much of the Bible, there's only 2 choices. I used to think that God had a lot of gray areas. But I really start to think the longer I'm preaching the Word of God and walking along that God is either this or this, that He's black or white, and that my life needs to reflect that more, black or white. I think about it in Scripture because when I hear passages spoken like that God is either for, that we are either for God or we are against God, that we are either saved or we are lost, that there's either wrong or there is right. And here there's very clearly just 2 things. There's earthly treasures and there are heavenly treasures. And they are dramatically different. Now let me just go through a couple of differences that I see. Number 1 was this. Earthly treasures are corruptible. Earthly treasures are corruptible. Jesus reminds us that the things of this world are subject to rust, they're subject to decay. You think about it. If you leave a garment in the attic, it doesn't take very long before the mice or the critters reduce it to just some shreds of thread. We put in our wedding dresses, right, in the attic, and then, 20, 30 years later, maybe we have a daughter and we get out that wedding dress. And first of all, we think, how in the world did I ever fit into that wedding dress? And then we just, but it's going to look good on you, sweetie. And we look at it, and then the beading falls off, and there's a hole in the side, and there's stains on it. And you're like, what happened? Time has taken over. We try to save things, but eventually they will rust away. I like to watch history stuff. I enjoy watching some shows about the Titanic and all that happened in that tragedy and everything. But scientists are saying, they're talking about how fast that is being consumed by rust. And there's coming a point when that's just going to be a red rust stain on the bottom of the ocean. No one will even know what was there. They'll just, something happened here, but the evidence will be gone. And that's what earthly treasures are like. You can do all that you want to hold on to them, but they are being corrupted. Now, stack that against heavenly treasures. Heavenly treasures are eternal. They're not corruptible, they are eternal. Listen to the word of John in the book of Revelation. John in Revelation 22 and in verse 3, he says that there is no longer will there be any curse. And what John is talking about is the curse that was given back in Genesis when sin first entered through the hearts of man, through the actions of Adam and Eve. There was a curse that was placed on the world. Death comes in, corruption comes in, frustration comes in, and all of that, John is saying, is removed. When we get to heaven, that curse is removed. There isn't anything to corrupt anything anymore. The body is transformed, something fit for eternity. Corruption is gone. What we will enjoy will be the way God intended it to be for all eternity. We cannot fathom eternity. We can hardly fathom 50 or 60, 70, 80 years It's gone like that. We look back on our life and we think, my goodness, where has the time gone? We can't fathom eternity, but God has created things to last for all eternity. And our rewards that he gives us in heaven are eternal rewards. Now, let's come back to earthly treasures. Earthly treasures are subject to theft as well. No matter how much you try to protect your valuables, they are always going to be subject to theft. You can put high fences around your stuff. You can encase them in concrete and steel vaults and all that sort of stuff. But as long as there are people around, they will figure out a way to get in there and get your things. Was it just a few weeks ago, right? The major robbery that happened at the Haddon Garden Safe Deposit in London. I mean, it was something like out of a James Bond spy where they got in through ventilation systems and secret tunnels people didn't know about and cut their way in. And here's a vault where people thought, all my safe stuff is in there. And then they come in one day and all their stuff that was so valuable, I don't want anyone to touch, is now gone. It doesn't matter how hard we try to keep people out. People will find a way to steal the things that we have. I was seeing something just this week about Fort Knox, and is talking about all the stuff that's going on in Fort Knox and everything that is there to protect the gold that's supposedly still there. I mean, who even knows if it's still there? But I can tell you this, as long as people are behind the controls of the security, there's always going to be a vulnerability. No matter how much we try to hold on to the things of the world, someone can take them from us. Now, let's pair that up against heavenly treasures. They are secure. They are secure. You know why? Because God stands watch. And in heaven, we're in heaven. When evilness is gone, who's going to be there to steal it from us anyway? Listen to what Paul says about the heavenly rewards that we receive in God, about the relationship that we have in God. He says this, "For I am convinced that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor demons, nor the present, nor the future, nor powers, neither height, nor depth, nor any else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord." God has such great things for us and has such great love for us that there's nothing that can separate that out. There is a security that we have in God that cannot be removed. In heaven, all of evil is gone. What is it that's going to be there that's going to steal us from the presence of God? There's nothing that can separate us from his love. There's nothing that's going to remove his rewards that he has saved up for us when we come into his presence, having lived a life faithfully to him. Now, before we move on to the next point, I want to say something about this one little sentence that Jesus says. He says, "For where your treasure is, your heart will be also." Notice this, that our hearts will follow after our treasures. I used to not think about it this way. I used to think it in a different way, but he says that where your treasure is, there your heart is also. I used to think, well, we put our heart to God and then we add our treasures to it. But that's not what Jesus is saying. Jesus is saying where you have decided to put your treasure, your heart then will follow that. So what I'm telling you is this, I think that what we ought to do is put God as our treasure, put God as the thing that's central, and our heart then will follow after that. When we put the things of this world as our treasure, do we not find our hearts following after that? Our heart leads where we have decided our treasure to be. And I think that's why Jesus said, when I look at where your treasure is, I can see where your heart is. Because your heart is always going to follow after your treasures. Now, let's move on to the next section that he brings up here in verse 22. He says, "The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are good, your whole body will be full of light. But if the eyes are bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness?" Now here's the second point. Write this down. As Christians, we must gain a proper perspective of our world. As Christians, we must gain a proper perspective of our world. When I was reading through this passage, I thought, why in the world is this in this section here? It's sandwiched between two things that seem to go together, and then we have this thing right in the middle that almost doesn't seem to fit. Let me stretch your thinking a little bit of how I'm able to maybe try to put this together in my own mind. The eye is the gateway to the mind. Right? I mean, we talked about that earlier, about if your eye causes you to sin, gouge it out. If your hand causes you to sin, cut it off. And I talked to you that one of the Jewish thinkings was that the eye and the hand were gateways to sin. And that's probably why Jesus talked about those two specific issues there. Jesus earlier in the Sermon on the Mount had been talking about being careful, how we look on one another, that we don't look with lustful thoughts that entice us into sexual immorality. But the eye can also entice us to lust for material things as well. And I think that's what Jesus is talking about here. Be careful about that, because the eye is that lamp that lets in good things depending on how we see our world around us, or it can let in bad things the way we see around us and bring a spiritual darkness to our soul when it ensnares us and it entices us in a wrong way. So let me give you two lessons here about how we should see the treasures of the world around us. Number one is always remember that what we see is temporary. Always remember that what we see is temporary. Paul says in 2 Corinthians, though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. Paul had a clear understanding that outwardly our bodies and the things of this world are wasting away. But the thing that matters and the thing that is being renewed and the thing that is being restored is the soul that is within us. When we are tempted to look on this world in such a way to be fulfilled by the things of this world, we always have to be reminded that the world is changing and things do not stay the same. Our bodies change. Our bodies wear out. I even think about it in fashion. What is cool and hip today and costs so much, tomorrow will be sold at the secondhand store for a bargain. You know what I'm saying? I was mentioning earlier when I was a young child, Izod was the shirts to have. You know, the little alligator up here, and it cost more money to get that dumb little alligator up there, and that was cool, and you had to pair it with, I wore corduroys. I don't know if they were ever hip, zoop, 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 you know what I'm talking about? But I wore corduroys all the time, and I could make them look fashionable. But I was always had to have an Izod shirt. But nobody wants an Izod shirt. And then I think they were called Jordache jeans, right? Was that what it was? Because like everyone needed Jordache jeans. They looked like they were sprayed on with a paint can, and that sort of thing there. I was trying to throw some stuff out in this morning's message that people would understand. They were just like, I'm not getting it. I said, all right, let me throw it out. Bell bottoms, all right? They were really cool at one time, and now we buy them when we want to dress up for Halloween, all right? The things that we think are so cool and so hip, sometimes within 2 months, 2 days, they're out of fashion already. And we spend so much time. Just understand this, that the things of this world are temporary. Temporary. Number two is this. Let your eyes look with enjoyment, not enticement. Let your eyes look with enjoyment, not enticement. Listen to what Psalm 19 says. That the heavens declare the glory of God and the skies proclaim the work of His hands. We should look at the things of this world with a proper enjoyment, but not with enticement. Enjoying the beauty of creation, both at the hand of God and at the hand of man, is not necessarily sinful. It's not wrong to look at a painting that was painted by the hand of man and say, that's a beautiful painting. It's not wrong to look at a sculpture and say, that's a nice sculpture. It's not necessarily wrong to even look at a car and say, that's a cool car, or that's a nice house, or whatever. Or to look at the beauty of the creation that God has made that is beyond all things that we can make. It's not wrong to look at those things and to admire those things. But it is wrong to look at those things and be enticed by those things. When we look at the things that are around us and we move from admiring them to idolizing them, we have overstepped the bounds. When we look at the stuff that is around us and it's no longer, hey, that's really nice. It's like we idolize it. I must have it. I will not be happy unless I have it. And it almost controls us. Then we have overstepped the bounds. Listen to how Paul described this even into his early culture. He said in Romans that they have exchanged the truth of God for a lie, and they worship and served created things rather than the Creator who is praised forever. Paul understood that they looked at the stuff around them and they said, man, this stuff is amazing, and they began to bow down and worship the stuff instead of understanding that there was a Creator who was behind them, and that Creator was greater than the created things. They moved from enjoyment to enticement, and ultimately into idolatry. Their eyes were being used to bring in spiritual darkness into their lives because of their lust. So we need to learn to keep a proper perspective on the things that we are looking at and how we allow them to influence our lives. Now let's look back at verse 24. He says that no one can serve two masters. Either he will hate one and love the other, or he will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Here's number 3. Following God is an all or nothing choice. Following God is an all or nothing choice. There's clearly a dichotomy between God and money. And although they are both desires for our allegiance, only one of them is truly worthy of it. Now let me just kind of lay these out. You can see how they're going back and forth. On the money side, money gives the allure of happiness, but it can never fully deliver on its promise. Money gives the allure of happiness, but it can never fully deliver on its promise. Ecclesiastes 5:10 says this, "Whoever loves money never has money enough, and whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with his income. This too is meaningless." John D. Rockefeller is probably the most wealthiest American we've ever had in our history, far exceeding even Bill Gates. We think about Bill Gates, John D. Rockefeller had more money than that. When John D. Rockefeller was asked, even into the height of his wealth, how much more money do you need? You know what he said? Just a little bit more. We always have that feeling. No matter how much God has blessed us with, we say we always need a little bit more. What I have found is even in my life, when I've gained a little bit more in finances, I've gained a lot more in payments. You know what I'm saying? I gain a little bit more here, but I gain a lot more over here because my appetite for stuff seems to always be greater than my ability to pay for those things. And because I'm always thinking that the next purchase will bring happiness, and we advertise it like this, right? Hey, have it your way. You know, get this new dress, get these new jeans. They're going to make you look good. They're going to make you look cool. All these things. It promises these wonderful things, but it never fully delivers. Now, pair that up against God. God gives true contentment even during unhappy times. Paul says in Philippians 4:12, "I know what it is to be in need. I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want." I wish I knew all that went in behind this to say, Paul, tell me how you learned the secret. Because that's probably a secret that I struggle with. Learning to be content in all situations. Paul says, I know what it was like when I had so much stuff and so much food and so much, I didn't even know how to enjoy all of this. And I know what it was like on one side to not have enough and to be hungry and think, where's my next meal coming from? And I need clothes just to keep me warm at night. And Paul says, I've been in both sides of things. And I've learned that the secret of life is to be content in both of those situations, whether I have an excess or I am lacking. We need to learn to understand, to be content in the things of God, even when times are unhappy. And though I may not be perfect at that, I am far from it. I know it is achievable because Paul, who was a mere man like you and I, Paul figured it out. And if Paul figured it out, then I know there's hope for you and I to figure it out, that I can find true happiness not in things, but in God. Now, let's go back to the money side. Money gives the allure of security, but it is easily lost. It gives the allure of security, but it is easily lost. One of the people in that little clip there talked about money. It's security. One of them said it's freedom. We have this idea that money has a way of just, is this going to make, I just feel like everything's going to be okay. But listen to what Haggai says. Now this is what the Lord Almighty says, give careful thought to your ways. You have planted much, but you have harvested little. You eat, but never have enough. You drink, but never have your fill. You put on clothes, but are not warm. You earn wages only to put them in a purse with holes in it. I mean, Haggai is saying, you just think, well, when I get this, when I plant this field, everything's going to be good. But the harvest comes and it's not a great harvest. And you think, well, if I could just eat, I'd feel okay. But then I still am hungry. Well, if I could just drink, I won't be thirsty, but I haven't met my fill. Well, if I could just have these clothes, and I'll be okay. But they never seem to be warm enough. Well, if I just work harder, I'll get some more money. But I seem to put more money in, and more money seems to go out. Money has this allure that it's going to bring security in your life, but it is so easily lost. Just think about the AIG stuff that happened, right? I mean, people put their money into other people's hands who they thought were doing honorable things with it, and they were doing dishonorable things with it, and it was gone. I personally know a person that lost $500,000 overnight with all of that stuff that happened. $500,000, poof, gone because just this way the stock market. Can you imagine? You'd be like, wake up one day like, where'd it all go? And when your hope and your trust and stuff is in those things and that is taken away, you are reminded how fleeting money is. But on the God side of things, God gives true security that cannot be moved. God gives true security that cannot be moved. In Ephesians 1:13 it says, having believed, you were marked in Him with a seal, the promised Holy Spirit, who is a deposit guaranteeing our inheritance until the redemption of those who are God's possessions, to the praise and glory of God. Paul is letting us know that we have been marked with a seal, the Holy Spirit, and it says the Holy Spirit guarantees our inheritance. It can't be lost. There's security there. No one's going to break in and steal it. No amount of fudging with the numbers is going to make it go away. It is there. I mean, there's very little in our life that is a guarantee. That's why we ask for a warranty on things, because there's no guarantee that it's going to work. And so we say, how long will you warranty this item? And even if we had a 100,000-mile warranty on a car, right? Some cars do that. I think Kia does that, right? 10 years, 100,000 miles. I'm like, okay, what happens after 101,000 miles? Because you know what's going to happen. 101,000 miles, the wheel's going to fall off your car. It always seems to work that way. It's like they somehow seem to know when it breaks. It's like, oh, warranty just went out last week. So sorry. We want a warranty on stuff because there's not a guarantee that things are going to last. But in God, there is a guarantee. He doesn't have to warranty anything because He guarantees something. And the way we know He guarantees something is He's given us the Holy Spirit as a down payment, as a seal to say, believe me, I will keep my word. Now, number 3 is this. Money gives the allure of being able to solve all of our problems, but it will always fall short. Money gives us the allure that it will be able to solve all of our problems, but it will always fall short. Listen to what Solomon wrote in Ecclesiastes. He says, wisdom is a shelter as money is a shelter. I mean, he understands there is some value to that. But then he says this, but the advantage of knowledge is this, that wisdom preserves the life of its possessor. Money does not. You can have all the money in the world. Will it keep you from getting cancer? No. You can have all the money in the world, but will it make your children love you? No. You can have all the money in the world, but will it give you a strong marriage? No. And yet we have this false allure that money's going to solve all of our problems. That if my wife isn't in love with me enough, I'll just buy her another diamond and that's going to make her happy. Or my husband's not emotionally connected with me, I'll buy him some other thing and that's going to make him happy. Or my children aren't happy with me, I throw them some more toys and buy them some more gadgets and that's going to make me happy. And know what you have? You have a house full of stuff, but still the same problems. Because money doesn't take those problems away. Money doesn't make a life perfect. Money doesn't make a family stay together. Money doesn't make people be forgiving to one another and honoring to one another and committed to one another. Money, we have this allure is going to make it better, but it won't. Money won't make your job better. Money won't make you more popular. Money won't make you more healthy. Money won't make you anything in this life except having money. I think in one thing it makes you more stressful. Once you have it, you're afraid you're going to lose it. And you stress yourself out over losing it, so you do stuff to have more. In case I lose some, I won't lose it. And it's just circle. Now, on the God side of things, I know this is different than your write-up because I changed it after Kelly had printed up the bulletin. God's solutions are always perfect. God's solutions are always perfect. Proverbs 30 verse 5 says this, every word of God is flawless, and He is a shield to those who take refuge in Him. God's answers may not be what I want to hear. They may not be what the world says is right. But I know that God's word is always right. His answer is always perfect. There's nothing false about that. Even when I can't understand it, His word is right. And that's where you just have to say, God, my heart and my mind are saying this because they're tainted by the world, but I will read what your word says and I will follow that. That is the answer. It's not wrapped up in money. Anyone who's had money, and we've all had money and we've thrown it at a problem, we find out that ain't the perfect answer. And we turn to the word of God and say, God, speak to me in this. So, how do we make sure that God is our master? Let me give you 3 practical things here. 3 practical things. Number 1 is this. Hold to this world loosely. Hold to the things of this world loosely. I heard Chuck Swindoll preaching, and he was talking about how Corrie ten Boom said to him one time, Chuck, I hope that you're holding on to things loosely, that God doesn't have to pry them out of your hand. You know, if you ever tried to pry something out of a child's hand, you know how difficult it is. You know how challenging it is. I mean, when that little kid does not want to let go of something, it is just like, a bear trap that's snapped and won't release. And you think about it, you pick up little Johnny, little Sally, and they got on your lap, and they just, and they grab a clump of hair. You know what I'm talking about? And they just like, you're like, how can such a tiny little hand be so stinking strong? And as a parent, you do all that you can to get them to release, pull those fingers back, and they're just like, ah! And you're like, oh my goodness. Because you know that the best thing is for them to release that. When you pry something out of the hand, it hurts you and it hurts them. Sometimes God has to pry things out of our hand. I think it hurts him that he has to pry the things out of the hands of his children who should know better. And it hurts us when God has to physically pry something away from us that we're not willing to just relinquish. Learn to hold the things of this world loosely. Number 2, kind of goes along with that. Learn to let go when it's time. Learn to let go when it's time. You know, Solomon writes, right, in Ecclesiastes, to everything there's a season. There's a time to gather stones, but there's a time to scatter stones. There's a time to live. There's a time to die. There's a time to be born. All those, there's a time when we hold on to some things to get through a season of life or whatever, and then there's a time when we need to let those go. We need to realize that we need to let go of the things of this world. Sometimes there are some dreams that we need to let go of. Sometimes there are some desires that we need to let go of. Sometimes there are some aspirations that are never going to be in the will of God for us, and we need to let go of them. And all of those things take spiritual maturity to do that. To say, God, I turn this over to you. God, I put this desire in your hands. God, I'm willing to let this go. Do you remember the closing scene of the movie Titanic with Leonardo and Kate, right? And she's out there on the piece of wood floating around, and she's holding on to Leonardo. And by now he's already died. He's frozen in the water, and she's sitting there, and you know how it is. I'll never let go, Jack. I'll never let go. You know. But as long as she's holding on to him, he's a lifeless body. And she's not going to get rescued. She can't reach over and swim over to the guy who has the whistle that she can blow so that someone can come and rescue her. And finally she breaks off and she lets him go and she swims over and she gets the whistle and she's rescued, right? And you're like, oh, she made it. You know what I'm saying? We need to learn to let go when it's time. So many of us will hold on to the thing that is already sucking the life out of us. It is lifeless itself, and we won't ever find life in God because we're holding on to something, and there's no life left in there. Sometimes we hold on to the things of this world, and we think, oh, someday it's going to fill us full of joy, and it's going to give us life, and it's going to make everything better. And God says, just learn to let go. I have something better for you, but I can't give it to you because you're holding on to this world. Learn to let go. And the third thing is this. If you're going to hold tightly to something, hold tightly to God. If you're going to hold tightly to something, hold tightly to God. One of the obstacles in a training course that we did while in the service, at the very end of the course, was this 25 foot so rope that we would have to climb. After you're already tired and exhausted hopping over all these other stupid, dumb things, you got to the end here and you had to climb this rope. I never saw one person climb a rope with one hand. I mean, there's probably some, massive freak of nature out there be like, I can do this. But I can't do that. And I never saw a single person do that. When I climbed the rope, I had to climb with both hands, holding on to both hands. Because if I tried to do it with one hand, it just wasn't enough. And I think that God is saying, you know what, church? You're trying to hold on to me with just one hand. You're trying to grow with just one hand in the game. You're trying to develop a relationship with just one hand in the game, but you're always holding on to something else. You're always reaching out for something else. And I think God is saying, you want to hold on with both hands to me tightly. Now, there's a great video clip I want to show you. So I want you to watch the screen here and think about that concept of what are you holding on to and what are you letting go of and what is the consequences. So let's run this video clip and then we're going to end things. What I think is so interesting is we have seen this over and over again in our world. We've seen someone who has let go because I can just almost reach it. And then they fall and then they're lost. And you know what we do? We go, well, they couldn't do it, but I can. I can get it. And then we try to attempt it. We need to learn to let go of the allure of this world. All its shiny, all its flashy things. Give both hands to God. Make Him your master. You can't grab that cup and grab God at the same time, can you? You can't serve God and serve money. You're going to love one and you're going to hate the other. You're going to be devoted to one, you're going to forsake the other. And one is false and one is true. Let's pray.